Here, Big 550, KTRS. James Scholes, one of our good friends, formerly of the Show Me Institute, has left that think tank to go to another think tank, the UMSL University. Is that correct? You're with UMSL now?
Well, yes, that's correct. I don't know if they call it a think tank, usually a university, but
well,
yes,
there's a lot
correct.
of thinking going on at
There is
universities.
a lot of thinking going on, that's
which is
for sure.
why I'm not allowed on university campuses, because I don't do a lot of thinking. What are you doing over there at UMSL?
I'm an assistant professor in educational leadership and policy studies. So it's a fancy way of saying
That's
I work.
a fancy title.
I work with people who want to be a principal or a superintendent of schools.
Okay, good. And there's a new policy paper out.
There is.
And you wrote it.
Well, I co-wrote it with one of the Show Me Institute's former interns. She really did a lot of the heavy lifting. Abby Fallon, who's I think a senior at Lindenwood, so she might be looking for a job.
Okay.
But she did a lot of the heavy lifting on it, and we just put it out recently about vacant school buildings. You know, schools face a lot of challenges, and we think about how do they do good instruction well, and how do they do all these different types of things that we regularly talk about.
Right.
But vacant school buildings is a sort of a unique problem that we don't talk about very often.
And there are a number of vacant school buildings because in the city of St. Louis, the school population has dwindled almost in half.
Right.
So they've had to close and shutter schools. Some of them have been sold off. Some sit vacant.
Mm-hmm.
So how big is the problem?
That's a pretty huge problem. I mean, I think even one vacant school building just sitting empty doing nothing is a problem. I mean, in St. Louis and in Kansas City, we have more than 30 vacant buildings in both districts, or each district. And that's a pretty big problem because really the only people who benefit from a vacant building are vagrants who might find a place to stay,
right.
Or people doing illegal activity. There's really nothing good that comes out of a building just sitting empty for a long period of time.
Okay, so what should be done with these buildings?
Well, that's sort of a hard question. That's one of the questions we kind of wrestle with in the paper. There's not a definitive right answer. So, people who support charter schools would say, oh, you should just give the building to the charter schools because charter schools are public schools. They're serving public school students. And why should taxpayers have to pay for it twice? Because we paid for it once. We
Right.
took out the loans, the debt to pay for it. Why do we pay for it again when the charter school buys it? And I see a lot of reason to support that argument. But at the same time, I see the district saying, whoa, we took on the debt for this building. We should get something out of it. And the district used to have a policy where they wouldn't sell to charter schools at all.
Right, because districts don't like charter schools and charter schools don't like the district.
Well, they're getting better. They're getting along. But in the past, there was much more hostile relationship. And, why would you give a building away to someone who's going to eventually take some of your students?
Right.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so the district in the past has really just sat on these buildings and done nothing with them.
Don't they turn them into sort of condos sometimes? And apartments?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
More recently, they have been exploring more and more options with what to do with them. And so, a few years ago, the Show Me Institute looked at what the land bank, the St. Louis Land Bank, did with vacant buildings. And it seemed like oftentimes they sat and waited for these huge developments to come about rather than going with the reasonable bids that they were getting.
Right.
And in many cases, it seems that that's what the school districts are doing. So rather than taking a reasonable offer, they hold out for some sort of grandiose plan that's going to do something amazing, and what happens is they end up sitting on a bunch of vacant buildings that are doing nobody any good.
So they'll pass on the small developer who might want to turn it into a senior center or early childhood development center or a nursing home or something,
right.
Because they're waiting for Stan Kroenke to come along and buy it for the new stadium.
Right. Yeah, something like that. I mean, they get lots of proposals from charter schools who maybe aren't willing to pay, don't have the money to pay the full price of what the district thinks the building's worth.
Right.
But they're willing to pay something for it. And they give them the runaround or they turn them down. And what happens is the building sits vacant and nothing good comes from that. Right. So what we say in the paper is really the districts should do whatever they can to divest themselves from these buildings. So their goal should not be to hold on to them.
Right.
They should maybe want to hold on to a few in the miracle case that they turn it around and enrollment starts going up in St. Louis public schools, which is probably not going to happen.
Right.
But just in case, maybe you hold on to a few of the better schools and keep them in good condition. Otherwise, they should be doing everything within their power to get these buildings off the public rolls, back into either private use or into productive use as a charter school, as an early childhood center,
because
whatever.
It ruins. I mean, it's the biggest vacant block in the neighborhood,
right.
which creates more of the problem. If you put it back to use, you're creating more traffic, more taxes, more benefit to the community.
Right.
I mean, something's better than nothing, you know?
Right, absolutely.
We talked to the school district when you were doing this study?
So we talked to them about the buildings, and we asked them about what they were doing. And what we saw is that St. Louis, actually, since we asked them about this, because we started this project back in the fall, they have started doing some stuff. They've been trying to list more properties. But still, it doesn't seem to be, it's picking up steam, but it doesn't seem to be a very active effort of doing something with these buildings and getting rid of the buildings, turning them into, condos or whatever it is.
Right.
They're still waiting for those great offers to come in.
I lived in an old schoolhouse in college one year, and it was great. Big giant hallways and big, huge ceilings, and it was a great little, apartment complex.
Yeah.
They could be great, and that's great for the neighborhood. It's, whatever. How many school buildings are we talking about again?
I don't remember the exact number. It's over 30 buildings in the St. Louis area.
Wow. All right. That is Dr. James Scholes. Where can people read the story?
So it's online at the showmeinstitute.org.
Showmeinstitute.org. And it's the story about what to do with vacant school buildings. Doctor, you're always welcome here. Thanks for popping in.
Thank you so much.
729 here, Big 550, KTRS.
Hi, this is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. If you want to make smart